Hi, everybody. I am making a recording of the presentation that I gave on March 7th, 2026 at the Blend Conference, which was at the University of Waterloo in Stratford. I wanted to continue this conversation with those of you who couldn't be there because I think this is a really important moment that we are in. My presentation was about AI, but really about us and how we are showing up at our work, how AI is impacting our work, and what are we going to do about it, and how do we feel about it. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, I knew that my presentation would not date well, and I think that is literally the point. This is a massive moment of change. Things are changing so fast that by the time I finish this presentation, something new would have happened. So I'm not interested as much in the technology. I wanted to take this moment to have a moment of reflection for us, to really be conscious about how technology, automation, and AI are changing how we work with each other, the parts of our job that are changing, so that we can have a meaningful discussion about it and be more intentional about the choices that we are making. So this presentation is not just my opinion. In moments whenever in my career I've had to grapple with something really big that I'm not sure about, my natural tendency is to want to talk to people. And that's what I did with this presentation as well. So when the throwdown was, hey, Gagan, do something around AI because that is part of what is on people's mind, what I decided that I was going to do was I was going to treat this like a research project. So I spent a month having some really interesting, deep conversations with some folks that I know in Toronto, and then also people that I've just met or have been introduced to that are in tech and are grappling with where they're at in their careers and what is happening in terms of AI and their relationship to technology. So what I'm about to present is not just my opinion, but I stand here with this information that I gathered from a bunch of people, including this survey that I ran. So yes, there is some of my opinion in it, but it's also based on findings and really trying to make sense of this moment with my community. So I broke up my presentation into three parts. This is Act 1, which is the I. And it is about how we are showing up at work today. So what is our identity at work? How are we feeling about our work? So in terms of the folks that I spoke with, I talked to a quarter of the people that I talked to were designers, and the next group was researchers, and then leadership, academia, folks that are actually still learning or have gone back to school, a few people from product, and I also talked to people that were not in tech. So business owners, people in tangential areas like law, trying to really understand people's relationship with technology, even if they were not within the field, so to speak. I'm sure there's a little bit of irony in this, but I did use AI to crunch the data and try to make sense of it. And one of the first things I did was map people's confidence in how they talked about their job, how they talked about what had changed in their careers and in their everyday work. And what I found interesting / troubling and very sad is that designers were feeling the least confident. And if you think about that for a moment, designers by their very nature are trained for and educated for planning for the future, right? So designers design for the future. They anticipate change and they make something for it. And these are the very people that are not feeling confident about their future in their careers in this moment. In terms of product, there was that level of fear as well. Interestingly enough, research, not as much fear. Leadership and academia, not as much fear. And I'll get a little bit more into that as I go into this presentation. And the next thing I did was I mapped how people were spending their time every day at work. And only a third of our daily work is on deep craft. So those are the things that we went to school for. A quarter of our work, and a little bit more than that, is in meetings and what I labeled as optics, which is basically telling people what we are up to, giving people status updates, giving them a sense of what is going on in our daily. A quarter of that time is also spent on strategy. So the big box strategy where you're planning for and anticipating what is happening in the future. And the rest of the time is one-on-one huddles and things like that, where we're actually getting work done with either other departments or those that we work with on the daily. When I talk to people, I ask them what parts of their job they didn't want to lose. And these are some of the quotes that really reflect the mood and the things that people told me. So parsing the problem with people, using my voice, storytelling, AI makes it feel flat. Knowledge-based conversations, collaboration, creative thinking, deep thinking, connecting the dots, hearing emotion, sense making. I don't want AI drawing conclusions. So if you pare all of that back, you're left with words with how we define ourselves as human beings, right? Nobody talked about Figma and shortcuts and being a power user in the software that they use. They talked about problem solving. They talked about creative thinking. They talked about being great storytellers. They talked about the fact that they can make sense of things that don't always make sense. They can connect dots, even when the dots are not that easy to find or see. So it's the very fact that we are thinking about our jobs and our humanity in this moment of technological change that I found super interesting. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to ask you questions. So my first question is, what is your irreplaceable superpower? So if AI is coming for your job and everything's changing, what is it that you believe makes you irreplaceable for the company that you work at? What is about you that would be very hard to find somewhere else? So what is your irreplaceable superpower? So part 2, it's the I. So what are the things that we are saying yes to? We might be saying an enthusiastic yes. We might be saying a slow yes. We might be saying yes because our companies are telling us to say yes and adopt AI. So what is our relationship with consent and AI? So when I ask people this question, the enthusiastic thing that everybody, like almost everybody, wanted to get rid of was admin and scheduling. So dealing with calendar Jenga and all of that, if that can all be automated, great. The next one was status updates. The more senior you are, the more updates you're giving to folks, the same update, but maybe just changing it a little bit depending on who you're speaking with. That could be automated. Document drafts, I'll talk more about that later in the presentation, but that first attempt at writing a document, a lot of that, people are happy to have AI help them. Meeting minutes, really interesting. Nobody really likes taking notes, I would say. 100% of us either are happy for AI to be doing that job today, or we wish that AI was better so that we didn't have to go through and figure out what happened in a meeting and send those notes out. And lastly, for those of us who deal with gobs of data, we are using AI to try and at least do the initial data crunching so that jobs are that much easier. So about half of our work week goes to meetings, reporting, and syncs. Asana did a survey and they actually showed that 60% of our work is work about work. So it's not actually doing the work, but telling people what we're up to. So if you pair all that information together, it turns out that we are actually willing to give away half of our work. So if half of our work is meetings and status updates and all that minutia that we wish we didn't have to do, if you do the math, that's the stuff that we are saying that, hey, AI, please take that away from me. I don't need to do it anymore. I looked at this from a different point of view as well. So I took what people said that they were using for AI, or they were being told by their companies that they should use AI for. And it turns out that 85% of our cold starts, so that's us writing the initial document or initial email, we are happy to have AI do a lot of that, and it is doing a lot of that. When it comes to solving big, hairy problems like strategy, thinking about what is next, really triangulating signal to make sense of what product direction we may take or what company direction we might take, we might use AI as a sparring partner, but really only about 15% of our effort is actually being taken up or being solved by AI. When it comes to mechanical work, so coding, making mockups, things like that, AI is doing more than half of that work with us. But when it comes to people, so when it comes to building relationships, really thinking about how we're investing in our teams or in how we build trust with our leaders, only 5% of that is being aided by AI today. So if AI is doing so much for us and it's taking up gobs of our mechanical work, why is it that we still have quotes such as this? I never get to spend quality time thinking deeply about a problem. It's whatever we can ship the most quickly. I find that interesting that we are still grappling with time, even though we have this high-powered assistant helping us every day. All right, time for another question for you. So if half of our work is being done by AI today, has your job become 50% easier? I think I know the answer to that, but I think it is a good question to ask ourselves right now. If we have so much automation and so much AI at our fingertips available to us, have our jobs become 50% easier than they were a few years ago? So Act 3, AI. So we stare AI in the face and we think about where we're at today. What has been taken away? What is left for us? What is our relationship with technology? And where are we at in our job? So I took the sentiment of what people were telling me about their jobs, their careers, and where they're at, and I mapped that to their job titles. And what I found, I don't think is that surprising, but juniors and individual contributors are feeling the highest amount of anxiety. There's a lot fewer roles for them. They're really feeling tense about how they're going to build a career in the field that they have chosen. Mid-level people are also feeling a sense of fear, a sense of identity loss, a sense of needing to upskill quite quickly. But past that, what I thought was interesting is that seniors, leads, and director level plus job titles are feeling a lot less fear. And this is my thesis. I think it's because it's always been messy at the top. There's a high amount of religious debates on what needs to be done and what should be done. There's a lot of big egos. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of human wrangling that has to be done. Obama had this really good quote: once you get a seat at the table, you realize people ain't all that. So I wonder if a lot of people in very senior roles have actually been promoted past a level of competence. So you're dealing with big egos, big titles, which all leads to a messy situation that is still best solved by human beings. And secretly, I think a lot of seniors are just trying to bide their time and figure out maybe they got 3 to 5 years left in their careers and they're just happy to ride off into the sunset and not have to deal with AI growing its skill set and coming for their jobs. So at the end of all of this, what is a human moat? What is left for us? And I think it just comes back to what we've always been really good at. We are really, really great at telling stories. We are really great at sharing our experiences. We are highly inventive and creative. We have an innate ability to read the room and read between the lines, figure out body language and all of that to understand where we're at in any sort of human dynamic or human group. And also, we own a lot of contextual strategy. We understand the language. We understand our organizational appetite for risk. And we can make sense of those things that are kind of, a bit fuzzy and make sense of them and triangulate the signal to actually figure out what it is that we need to do in this moment. And I think that is still not really that solvable by AI. And here are a few quotes from the interviews that I did. Strategy doesn't come in a box. It ties together disparate things. It has an underlying appreciation of human behavior and of the culture of your company. A director of product management told me that interviewing real people, seeing their facial expressions, the emotional weight, you never get that with synthetic users. I also had a really interesting in-depth conversation with a master's student who is studying AI management, and he said, AI is a prediction model. It predicts what comes next based on what has been said millions of times. it cannot make the jump of a creative human. What was also clear for me was that when I spoke with people, we are sort of dividing ourselves into two camps. So there's people who are super actually passionate about AI, and they really cannot wait for it to take away most of their work and also help their teams work faster. There's also another group of people who's really doubling down on the human aspects of things, who are really thinking about and using this moment to reflect on where they're at in their humanity. Here are a few quotes from the people who are really doubling down and using AI aggressively. What I thought was interesting in some of these comments was that it didn't seem like there was that much agency. A few people are actually doubling down on AI because they feel like it is where their company is headed or where their industry may be headed. And they want to remain competitive, they want to move faster, and they have a sense of fear that their competition might be doing something that they're not doing. And these are a few quotes from the people who are really doubling down on the humanity aspect, trying to do things that are more human, like playing games with friends, trying out new hobbies. As researchers, trying to build authentic relationships and be more human and show up and have more conversations that they can bring to bear to their organization. Really thinking about working with coaches and also upskilling on areas that interest them, not necessarily in the areas that they're being told that they need to upskill in, which is AI and design. So my question for you is, does your company have a policy around AI, and do you? What parts of your job are you going to hold on to and you refuse to let go? And what parts are you willing to let go? Also, when you're having conversations at your company, what kind of tenor are they taking? Are they about using AI more, or maybe talking about privacy and legislation and thinking about what responsible use of AI looks like within your company and then with broadly in your industry? So curious to know, is this something that you're thinking about right now? Looking at career ladders, it is pretty clear that we are eroding the junior role right now. Here are a few quotes that I gathered when I asked people about the role of juniors. I thought it was interesting that there seemed like there was almost guilt, a sense of wanting to hire juniors, but just not being able to do that, whether that was because of lack of time, lack of money, because you're moving too fast and you feel like you wouldn't have the ability to be able to invest in a junior. I hadn't heard this phrase till I started to prepare for this presentation. It comes from farming, where if you're a corn farmer, you would be stupid if you ate all your corn or you sold all your corn. It is your responsibility to save some high quality kernels so that you have enough to sow for the next year and build a sustainable business. So if you take that same analogy and you think about it for tech, I don't think that we are building successful, sustainable businesses. We are acting in maximizing for the right now and not caring about what happens tomorrow. If we don't hire juniors, you can never become a senior. And I think it is irresponsible for us to wield this power and really only think about this moment and not think about the basically what is a virtuous cycle, right? Like you have a junior who is given opportunities so that they can build their career, so that they can become more helpful and contribute at a senior level, and so on and so forth. And we're not doing any of that today. When I ask people what their advice would be to juniors, given that there is very few junior roles, here's what they said. The obvious ones, mastering AI, learning coding, but also interestingly enough, focusing on what fascinates you. So thinking about your careers in a more meaningful way. It is going to be a lot of improv, say yes and go figure it out. Definitely build creative thinking skills, stay curious, and listen attentively. I also think there's another opportunity that we are not talking about. I had a birthday a few days ago and I don't use Facebook at all, but like one does, I needed a dopamine hit. So because it had been my birthday, I cracked open Facebook, wanting to see all these beautiful human messages that people had sent me, wishing me a happy birthday. I opened Facebook, and what I didn't realize that Facebook is doing now is that it's essentially automating people sending birthday greetings. If you look at these greetings, you will see the same comma, the same emojis, and it's just a wall of the same message over and over again. And I started to think about this experience, this micro transaction, if you will. It has certainly removed that dopamine for me. I did not feel any sense of joy or connection with another person. All I saw was a generic message. I knew that these people had not thought of me at all when they sent me the message. They just hit submit multiple times. You think about it from the sender's perspective. The sender has now been reduced to a robot who is just hitting a submit button, right? They're just mashing that one button. They're not being encouraged to think about Gagan or what their relationship is with me. They're not being prompted to really think about that personal touch. They are just sending out an automated message. AI is reducing this conversation and it is helping us in terms of efficiency, but it is removing that thing that makes us interesting. All the advancements in automation and AI are pushing us to the middle. They're removing what makes us interesting as human beings. I have another more pragmatic example. A friend of mine who's a product designer sent me this document. She is working with a new product manager who's just been hired at her company, and this product manager wrote this long document, longer document than they're used to seeing from their product managers. And what struck me was this disclaimer at the top. I've left all the typos. I recreated the page so that I could hide the branding, so that I could keep this anonymous. But you think about what this person has done, right? So they've written this disclaimer and they've said that there could be errors in this document, but that's okay. And if you think about what a product manager used to do when they wrote a document, right? A document was the end of a process. It wasn't necessarily something that they just popped out of their head. They had a lot of conversations. They did a lot of research. They involved designers. They involved engineers. They had difficult conversations that helped triangulate where the company was going versus this one new product feature that they were thinking about. The document didn't just pop out of somewhere, but it was a summation of some conversations that were important enough that they helped define what was next for the product that the product manager was envisioning. But what this product manager did was they removed all of that. They sort of absolved themselves from responsibility and they gave it all up to AI. So whether Claude did a good job or a bad job, immaterial, what the product manager is saying, they're only responsible for prompt engineering. They're not responsible for making sure that their document is one that is useful to the reader. So I think that if we are going to use AI, that's okay, but we need new rules of engagement. If you think about a product manager's job, yes, you should be good at prompt engineering, but you still need to involve research and design and make sure that what you are proposing is valid. You need to be able to do some fact checking. You need to be able to look at what AI spits out and figure out what are the blind spots, what is the biases that AI has injected into whatever your new idea is. And you need to have tough conversations within your company so that you have social defense and alignment before people even read the document. While I'm on the screen, I also want to talk about that image that I have in the background. So I used prompts to basically what I wanted was a retro image so that I could talk about the classics of product management. Now, do you think that is the first image that AI spat out at me? No, this is the image that it spat out at me. If you look at this image, this is an uncomfortable mirror of where we've been, but I'm not sure this is where we want to go. And I think this is a really good metaphor for what AI is doing to us. It is holding a mirror to us with all our uncomfortable history and not really changing things. It's flattening us back to what we used to do, what we have posted online, what we have talked about. If you look at this woman, she is dead in the eyes. She might possibly even be crying. It took a lot of prompting for me to make sure that I wasn't putting a man in this awkward power dynamic where he's telling a woman what to do. I wanted to make sure that what I put out there wasn't uncomfortably white. And tons of research shows that AI is pushing us towards white, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic because that is the data that it is pulling up, right? So it's not making things up, it is just taking what it's learning about us and averaging that out. And that's something that we have to ask ourselves. Is average good enough? And this is where I get spicy because I think that if we are going to settle for AI taking away a lot of our mechanical work and, getting rid of meeting updates and things like that, what are we going to do? And that's why I wanted to have this conversation because I think now is a moment for us to consciously make choices. Some of us are not even able to make choices because we are struggling to find a job. But I think when we're looking for a job, we need to think about what is it that we are really good at? What are we bringing to the party? And I think naturally, intrinsically, we are really great at human things. It's what we do. We are able to look for people that are like us. We're able to adapt. We are able to reflect on our past and our histories and grow from it. We are able to today, I think, build businesses in a way that we have not been able to do in the past. Of all of the things that AI is doing, some of it is actually really great for building opportunities for us to actually build a business that reflects who we are, our values, and what is important to us. So I think if the middle is taken, it is our responsibility and our choice and our privilege to be able to live on the edges. Part of my gig right now is to really meditate on what it is that I'm doing with AI. So when it came to this presentation, I thought a lot about how much AI am I willing to use. So I was very clear right from get-go that I wanted to be in the driver's seat to have this conversation. I didn't want AI to take up more space than I gave it. And that's my throwdown to all of us, is to actually think about when is it that we are abdicating responsibility and when are we leaning in to the things that we are really great at. I knew the story I wanted to tell based on the data I had, and I wanted to make sure that that story came through in my voice, not in what AI wanted me to do. Did I try and use AI to write my script? Absolutely. But what I saw was flat, boring, and just not Gagan. Like, it wasn't me. And so I my throwdown from myself and the people that I coach is that we remain as human as we can for as long as we can. When I think about my coaching relationship and my clients, it is incredibly important to me that that sacred trust of a one-to-one relationship is maintained. Do I use AI? Yes, I do. Do I use AI on the daily? Absolutely. When it comes to meeting notes, am I great at them? Absolutely not. But I use AI for that mechanical stuff, right? So it will record my meeting, it will help me take some notes. I will look at the summary that it spits out, and I will usually disagree with it and write my own summary because I want to accentuate the things that I know will connect with my client. I want to make sure that it's not just kind of averaging out our conversation, but I'm really bumping up the things that I think will matter and will take my clients to their next level. And that's only came through because I'm reflecting on this moment, that I'm really thinking about it. And I'm trying to be as intentional as I can. And I am asking for us, all of us, to be as intentional and think about, hey, what are the parts of my job that I absolutely adore, love, and I'm passionate about? And be fierce about not giving those up. Let it take away all the stuff that you don't care about, right? Like, give all that stuff up for sure, and no problem with that, and be honest about it, and just live in the moment that you have that choice now where you can give up some things so that you can double down on the things that matter. Thank you.